You're not meant to be half of someone's life. Being present is not the same as being chosen, and liking someone isn't enough when the other person refuses to acknowledge their feelings. Being there on empty days, offering comfort in uncertain times, but never being a priority, that wears you out. No one deserves to live waiting for a gesture that never comes fully. Those who offer true love expect the bare minimum, reciprocity. But when everything is filled with doubt, silence, and absence disguised as affection, something needs to be said. Love isn't what comes around only when there's spare time. It's not what hesitates, hides, or retreats in the face of another's openness. Those who still don't understand the value of what's in front of them risk losing it. Because at some point, anyone who offers everything learns that they deserve everything and won't settle for less. Halves don't sustain anyone, and no one should stay where they aren't clearly chosen. No one deserves to be half in someone's story. It's not about pride, neediness, or exaggeration. It's about emotional sanity, knowing your own worth, recognizing the signs that, although silent, scream inside your chest every day. There's a clear difference between being present and being chosen. Many people are around, but they aren't truly there. Caring for someone isn't enough when the other person hides from their own emotional responsibility. It's easy to say you feel something. It's comfortable to keep close those who provide comfort, calm, and support. What's difficult is to take a stand. It's hard to look someone in the eye and say, "I want you entirely, and I'm willing to make it happen." But when silence drags on, when actions don't match words, when time passes and everything remains shallow, the truth starts to hurt. Because there's nothing more cruel than being kept as an option when you have the potential to be someone's choice. No one should live in a perpetual almost. Waiting is exhausting. Uncertainty wears you down. The lack of definition eats away at you. And little by little, what was love turns into doubt, and doubt turns into self-neglect. How many times do we justify someone else? How many times do we make excuses for what is already clear? They're confused. They have traumas. They just need time. But the truth is, those who want to show it do. Those who feel don't postpone. Those who recognize value don't hesitate. The problem is that constant affection becomes a prison when it isn't reciprocated with the same courage. And staying in this case ceases to be a choice. It becomes emotional dependence disguised as hope. The pain of not being a priority isn't visible to the naked eye, but it bleeds in silence. It hides in dry responses, in last-minute cancellations, in disappearances without notice, in postponed invitations, in "we'll see later." And then comes the bitter part. When someone chooses to live with half, they teach the other that it is enough, that it can be this way, that there can be no effort, presence, or commitment, and still the person remains there, available, constant, understanding. But for how long? How long is it possible to endure being remembered only when it's convenient? How long is it possible to accept scraps and call that love? The truth is that the human heart gets sick when it gets used to being undervalued. It withers in silence. It accepts less. It stops recognizing itself. And the most dangerous thing, it begins to believe that this little is all it deserves. But it isn't. It wasn't. It never will be. Healthy love requires real presence. It's not about pretty words. It's about constant action. It's about being there, even when it's not easy. It's about taking a stand, even with fear. Those who say they feel but run from commitment are not ready to love anyone, perhaps not even themselves. And it's not up to anyone to wait for the other to evolve by force. Everyone has their own timing, yes, but those who are ready should not live waiting for someone to make a decision. Because there is a vast difference between patience and self-neglect. Waiting for someone who doesn't move is slowly forgetting oneself. And this choice, to stay where you're not a priority, comes at a high cost. It costs sleepless nights, self-esteem in ruins, confused thoughts, sad eyes disguised with fleeting smiles. There comes a time when it's necessary to break this cycle. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of respect, self-respect. Those who do not see what they have in their hands end up losing it. And sometimes they only realize it too late. But that's how it works. The affection that isn't honored turns into distance. The love that isn't welcomed retracts. The presence that isn't recognized withdraws. And no one should feel guilty for leaving. No one should bear the guilt for choosing themselves. Because learning to say no to what hurts is the first step to saying yes to what heals. It takes courage to leave a place where the heart insists on staying, but even more courage to not go back. What many call drama is in fact dignity. What they call coldness is self-preservation. What they call indifference is setting boundaries. The truth is that no one loses what they weren't willing to keep. Those who see value take care. Those who feel truth prioritize. Those who truly love don't hesitate. And for those who are tired of being almost, of being half, of being an emotional resource for someone who never fully commits, there is an exit. It's simple, but it requires strength. Choose yourself. Stop waiting. Stop justifying. Stop creating stories in your head to sustain an affection that, in practice, isn't reciprocated. Choose silence if necessary. Choose distance if that's what it takes. Choose temporary solitude if it means preserving your own peace. Because between being alone and being poorly accompanied, the choice must be clear. And even if it hurts, freeing yourself from what hurts is always the beginning of something better. There is no new beginning within a story that only goes in circles. There is no healing where emotional neglect exists. There is no growth where everything is held together by fear of loss. Whoever hasn't recognized the value of those walking alongside them probably doesn't deserve to continue on that path. And when you learn this, everything changes. The pain of leaving is real. The pain. But the pain of being ignored, undervalued, or delayed, that truly destroys from within. There comes a time when the only possible answer is distance, not to hurt, but to survive. And no one needs to beg for space in the life of someone who clearly isn't willing to make room. If there's doubt, there's no priority. If there's escape, there's no intention. If there's silence, there's no reciprocity. And the absence of a response is already a response. No one deserves to be half. No one should settle for less than what they offer. No one needs to bear the weight of someone else's indecision. Those who want it, commit. Those who love, choose. Those who feel, prove. Everything else is an excuse. Everything else is lukewarm. Everything else is insufficient. This is the breaking point. The moment you stop trying to convince the other and start remembering who you are. When self-love speaks louder, what is small no longer fits, because it's no longer acceptable to accept ties that only tighten, messages that only arrive when convenient, affections that only show up when everything is already hanging by a thread. It's time to stop waiting for changes that won't come. It's time to close chapters that drag on endlessly. It's time to make room for the new, even if that means first rebuilding yourself. Those who learn to choose themselves never again accept being a second option. Learning to choose oneself doesn't happen in an instant. It's a silent process, almost always solitary. There are no applause, no audience, no guarantees, just the firm decision not to return to the place that hurt. And that's where everything begins. First, the emptiness. The cut between what was desired and what had to be done. The heart insists on remembering the good moments, even if they were few. The memory tries to romanticize. The attachment wants to come back. But the awareness this time asserts itself, and it teaches. Those who didn't choose you before don't deserve your presence now. Reconstruction begins with pain, but it doesn't end there. It's when you start to look in the mirror with different eyes. No longer with judgment, but with compassion. No longer with expectation, but with presence. It's at this point that something changes. You no longer seek someone to fill the void. You begin to seek someone who overflows. And the criteria shifts from who offers promises to who is truly present. Who shows with small actions what once only came in empty words. But before that comes the fresh start. Dry, raw, necessary. There's the Saturday night in silence. The notification that never comes. The desire to return just to feel something familiar. But you don't return. Not anymore, because now there's a limit. And even though the heart still bleeds, it no longer accepts scraps. It's not about becoming strong overnight. It's about stopping the desperate pleas for love disguised as attention. It's about learning that affection doesn't need to be earned through effort. That true affection doesn't require inhumane sacrifices. It's about understanding that what binds you isn't love, it's fear. its patterns, its trauma. And no trauma gets resolved by staying within the same wound. From there, the perspective changes. Choices change. The way you relate also changes. You stop chasing after others. You stop accepting future promises in exchange for present suffering. You stop molding yourself to fit into someone else's life. Those who rebuild learn to listen to themselves, and those who listen begin to clearly recognize what they once accepted out of need. And the most surprising part, the peace that arrives when you stop insisting on those who never knew what to do with so much love. This peace isn't loud, it doesn't shout, but it supports, and it's this peace that guides each new step. It's not about closing your heart, but about keeping it open only for those who know how to enter. Because when self-love matures, it teaches something you'll never forget. It's never worth staying where you're not seen, and those who learn this never go back. The distance is not an escape, it is a reunion with what was left behind, with what was silenced out of fear of losing the other, with what was suppressed in the pursuit of acceptance, even in spaces that always rejected it. The loneliness that arrives at this moment is not the same as before. Before, it was the emptiness of being with someone and still feeling alone. Now it is a silence that begins to heal. At first it is uncomfortable. The silence feels cold. The free time hurts. The routine without that presence weighs heavily. But then, little by little, something starts to change. Forgotten small habits return. The music that had been set aside. The sleep that comes back without the anguish in the chest. The appetite that is reborn. The energy that returns. The gaze turns inward. And then you realize that what seemed like love was just attachment. What seemed like a bond was dependency. What seemed like reciprocity was convenience. No one notices this in the middle of the storm, but the distance reveals everything that was cloudy. The absence of the other reveals one's own presence, and what once hurt like loss becomes seen as a deliverance. Because once you choose yourself, you never again submit to being someone else's choice. Gradually, clarity comes, and the guilt fades away. It wasn't an excess of love, it was a lack of reciprocation. It wasn't intensity, it was imbalance. It wasn't giving too much, it was misguided giving. Then begins the most silent and true process of all. The process of never abandoning oneself again. Returning to oneself requires more strength than fighting for another. It requires presence. It requires firmness. It requires remembering, every day, that accepting less than you deserve is consented violence. And over time you start to see the signs that were once ignored, the discomfort disguised as habit. The silence laden with contempt, the effort that was never enough, the weight that always dragged on, the words that never became actions. Everything now is clear. Everything now makes sense. And it's at this moment that one understands. The other was never the whole problem, nor were they ever the solution, because the lack of self-love opens the door to any presence. And any presence becomes an addiction when one no longer knows how to be alone. But now solitude has become home, and it teaches. It shows that peace is not monotony, it's security. It shows that love is not adrenaline, it's warmth. It shows that those who stay by choice, not by necessity, love lightly. And then true freedom is born. The kind where there's no need to chase after anyone. The kind that no longer settles for half measures. The kind that doesn't bow down in the face of absence. Those who face this solitude head-on learn to walk without emotional crutches. They learn to see with greater clarity, to choose with more discernment, to love with more patience, and most importantly, they learn that being well alone is the most powerful filter against empty relationships. Because after rebuilding oneself, no one will accept being someone else's reconstruction anymore. No one deserves to be merely a presence when they have a soul meant to be a choice. And those who learn this change, they don't just change the way they love, but also what they accept, what they allow, what they sustain. After insisting on those who couldn't stay, one begins to value the silence that embraces, the space that heals, the time that rebuilds. And no matter how much nostalgia insists, it no longer has the strength to bring anyone back. Because when one understands their own worth, they no longer negotiate with those who sit on the fence. Those who do not choose, lose. And those who lost someone who gave themselves entirely for so long may never find that again. This is the turning point, The awareness that it's not about being tough, cold, or closed off, it's about having boundaries. Knowing where affection ends and neglect disguised as presence begins. Those who remain in a place that does not embrace them diminish a little each day. And from the moment one says enough, the new beginning starts. Not with celebration, but with truth. Not with promises, but with presence. Not with answers from others, but with reconnection to yourself. The path back to yourself is the longest, but it's the only one that leads back to peace. And when peace settles in, no one can destabilize you anymore. Whoever comes, let them come fully. Whoever stays, let them stay by choice, not out of need. And whoever leaves, let them take only what they couldn't recognize. This is the reminder: half measures don't sustain anyone. Those who love choose. Those who feel experience. Those who want demonstrate. The rest is just noise. If this message resonated with something inside you, share it with someone who needs to read this today. Leave your comment down below. I want to know if you've experienced something similar, or if you're going through this process right now. And if this reflection truly touched you, give it a like. That helps spread this message further. Oh, and subscribe to the channel Dark Profile, because there's still a lot of deep content coming your way. Sometimes all that's missing is the right word, said at the right moment, to remind no one was made to be an option. It's either whole love or a clear path.